Okay, I'm ready.
Welcome everyone to Diritto al Digitale, the podcast where law, technology, and innovation meet. I'm Giulio Coraggio, the location head of the Intellectual Property and Technology Department at DLA Piper in Italy. And in each episode, we explore how digital regulation is shaping business decisions across industries. Today, we focus on AI governance in the life sciences sector, an area where innovation must coexist with some of the highest regulatory, ethical, and privacy standards. I'm joined by Oliver Patel, head of enterprise AI governance at AstraZeneca, to discuss how AI is governed in practice inside a global pharmaceutical company and what the UAI Act means for the future of this sector. Welcome, Oliver. Thank you for accepting my invite.
Hey, Giulio, it's great to be here. Really excited for our discussion today. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Well, it's really a pleasure. And Oliver, you are one of the gurus around AI governance. I follow you around on LinkedIn, but also at many events. Normally, at the beginning of our episodes, we ask our guests to give an outlook of their career, how they reached their current role. You are in a very prominent position in a very innovative pharmaceutical company in a very interesting time because regulations are coming and also the attention by regulators is quite strict. Can you give us an outline of your career and what brought you where you are now?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for the kind words. I definitely wouldn't call myself a guru because I think this field is so complex and cuts across so many different topic areas that it's really impossible for anyone to fully understand all of it. But what I would say is that I have had, I would say, an unorthodox but interesting career journey. And the way that I tell this story is that I've progressively moved from theory to policy to practice,
Okay.
always working on the topic of AI and data in some way, but I've kind of become increasingly industry focused in the work that I've done. So my journey really starts with my academic background and studies in philosophy. I studied philosophy and public policy for my master's, and I was really inspired by the ethical and moral debates around AI and the impact of AI on humans, and also whether there's anything really special or unique about human intelligence and human consciousness that means it cannot be replicated in machine form or in digital form. So that was my kind of academic grounding that inspired me to work in this field. I then spent several years working in academia. So at University College London, I was a research associate, and I had a lot of time then to really develop my own foundational knowledge of these issues, writing lots of papers, teaching classes, speaking at events, that kind of thing. I then moved to policy. Like I said, I worked for the UK government for some time on international data transfers and data policy in particular. There was a lot of work to do as the UK was leaving the EU to make sure that the right agreements and mechanisms were in place with the EU to enable UK EU data transfers and kind of business continuity. And then finally, as the field of AI really started to grow significantly across industry and across the enterprise world, I saw that there were these opportunities to work on AI governance, responsible AI policy in companies for the first time. And obviously, given my academic background and my interest and passion for that subject area, as soon as I saw that opportunity, I kind of went for it. And that's how I ended up working at AstraZeneca, first as the AI governance lead, and then now as head of enterprise AI governance, leading this global function.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. Oliver, sometimes talking to clients, we have the impression that uh, AI innovation across organizations is driven by the IT department, by the engineers, let's say, and they see AI governance as a threat to their ambitions of innovation. The pharmaceutical sector, I mean, has been growing maybe after COVID faster and faster, and obviously there is the need to find a bridge between innovation and governance. How are you able to find the right balance without creating frustrations in the technical experts, but at the same time accompanying your business during this path that is getting faster and faster again?
Getting this balancing act right is the hardest and most important part of AI governance. So it's the bit that is the most meaningful work. And every company, every organization will have a slightly different approach. And I think really the approach has to be based on the kind of fundamental values and culture of your organization, and in particular how important it is to innovate and be at the frontier. Because although every organization of course will say that they are innovating and they want to be at the frontier, really it's not the case, right? Every organization is slightly different, and every organization has a slightly different risk tolerance or risk appetite. And there are some sectors that are just naturally more cautious or more conservative, and others that are more bold. So the most important thing that I would say is that your approach to AI governance really has to be tailored to and aligned with the business context in which you operate. If you're attempting to govern in a way that is detached from the kind of business reality of the organization that you're in, you'll really never get anywhere. So you do have to be tailored. You do have to be, and that's why I have my kind of 6Ps framework. So the 6Ps for AI governance success is basically my framework for how to operate as an AI governance practitioner. I don't need to go through all of them, but the most important for this topic is to be proportionate and to be pragmatic. So being proportionate means recognizing that AI governance doesn't mean governing all AI. So just because something has AI in it doesn't mean it requires really robust governance and scrutiny. And being pragmatic is realizing that in many respects, the risks for organizations of not adopting AI are greater than the risks of adopting AI. So these are the kind of behaviors and principles that AI governance practitioners need to bear in mind, especially when they work in an innovative enterprise context. So AI governance doesn't have to be a threat to innovation if it's progressed in a tailored way for an organization and is proportionate and pragmatic in its approach. However, that doesn't mean you should be a pushover, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't have your deal breakers and non-negotiables, whether it's on an ethical standpoint or a compliance standpoint. I would never advocate for that, but you do also have to be conscious of the context in which you're operating.
Yeah, absolutely. Oliver, the comment that I normally receive from the technical side of many clients is that everyone in the industry is using this AI solution. Why should we care about doing any sort of compliance work? I'm sure that these large providers are doing everything right, and should they just come after us? I mean, what is your perspective? Obviously, you are working in a very sensitive sector, so probably the level of attention to compliance is higher than the standard in other industries.
True. So, yeah, I think that the sort of clients you're working with, people across industry, they're not wrong to say that ultimately the big AI providers are going to be subject to more scrutiny and have more regulatory obligations to comply with. That is a fair point. However, the tricky thing is you never know as an organization when your teams or your business units are going to develop and scale an AI solution that is subject to significant regulatory requirements or compliance obligations. And so what you don't want to be is in a position where you're not ready or you're caught out when that is the case. And the only way you can know that that's happening and identify it and get ahead of it is by having some kind of AI governance framework and process in place to evaluate and track the use cases, to risk assess and classify the use cases into different risk tiers, and to actually ensure that when you do have high risk AI, or you do have something that is in scope of the regulations like the EU AI Act, that you actually apply some level of governance and control to it. So that doesn't mean you need to overgovern on all of the use cases that are not in scope of the regulations. So I would never advocate for implementing a bunch of compliance obligations and controls where they're not actually legally required for a given use case. So many organizations may have say they have 100 different AI use cases. They may only have 3 that really are high risk under the law. But the only way they would know that in the first place is if they have this framework and they have this process. And just because the majority of their AI is not in scope doesn't mean that they should ignore the fact that they do have legal obligations for a small fraction of their AI inventory. So the other point I would like to make is there are ways in which companies that deploy and use the AI solutions provided by big tech companies means that they can be in scope of the regulations more than they think. So one topic that I've discussed quite a bit is this notion of how organizations can become a deployer and potentially a provider of a high risk AI system purely by using a general purpose AI system like ChatGPT or Gemini in a way that makes it high risk. So if Google or OpenAI did not intend for the general purpose AI system to be used for things like CV screening, medical diagnosis, assessing educational submission applications for prospective students, if they have a clause in their terms of use that says don't use it in this way, and you do, then all of a sudden you become the provider, not them. And then you're suddenly, in theory, subject to quite a large list of obligations that you may be completely unaware of.
Yeah, or if you put on the market under your own brand some products that are powered by these LLMs, then you will become the provider of the solution to the public. Or if you implement a large amount of customizations, through a system integrator and other providers. Definitely, this is a tricky element. Do you think that with the UAI Act, that unfortunately we still don't know when the deadlines will become applicable, because they might change with the omnibus package. Do you think the approach to AI compliance will change with from August of next year, when most of the provisions will come into place, or it's already changing?
Certainly in the last few months, I think that many organizations have just begun their AI governance journey, especially like smaller and mid-sized firms that maybe haven't been kind of doing this for a few years, like big companies like the one I work for. And I think that's partly because actually after the EU AI Act actually entered into force in August 2024, all of this felt more real. But I'm sure that the kind of omnibus proposals to simplify and amend the EU AI Act and the GDPR and other laws, especially with respect to like delaying the applicable dates for high risk AI systems, will certainly have an impact on industry. I think that it's hard to imagine organizations taking more seriously and ramping up their EU AI Act work if they have the perception that the EU is still actually doubting exactly what it's trying to do here. So I think I do anticipate organizations maybe taking more of a wait and see approach to see how it all plays out, because quite a few of the changes that are on the table would have a meaningful impact on how you would actually approach AI governance internally. And so it wouldn't make sense for an organization to kind of invest lots of resources into doing something that is then taken away. On the other hand, though, everything in the AI Act today is in law today, and there's no guarantees that any of the changes will be made. So it puts businesses in a tricky position where, although the changes are there to support businesses and they're well intentioned in that respect, of course, what we have now is potential simplification and making life easier for businesses, but achieved at the expense of certainty. And obviously businesses, they don't like it when there's a lack of certainty, because it means that not sure what to do. So high risk AI is the biggest example. Will it be from August 2026? Will it be some date after that when the standards are available? Or will it be December 2027 if the standards don't become available, that kind of backstop date? We don't know yet. So if I go to my leadership and they ask me when do we have to do this by, I can't give a straight answer. I have to say, well, it depends. It could be 2026 August, December 2027, or somewhere in between. And so do we just assume it's going to be August 2026 until we're told otherwise? Probably that's the safest bet, because that's what's in law today.
Yeah, no. That's super confusing for organizations that need to make investments. They don't have unlimited resources, and obviously that creates a risk of lack of compliance. Last question, Oliver, that we always address to our guests. If you want to give, if you had to give a piece of advice to whoever wants to start a career like yours within AI governance, what is the most relevant skill that you need to develop?
That's a lovely question. So I think that the first point I'd make before directly answering it is that there are many different types of careers in AI governance. So I obviously work in enterprise AI governance, where there's a big focus on compliance and risk management in an industry setting. But of course, you can also work in AI policy, in a government or civil society context. You can work on technical AI safety research and technical AI safety implementation in an AI lab. So there are all sorts of different types of careers you can now have in AI governance. I think in my context, enterprise AI governance, change management is a huge part of what we do. We're driving certain cultural and behavioral changes across a large organization. And so what we always look for is this blend of technical skills and expertise and the soft skills and the ability to really communicate, build relationships, win over hearts and minds with the way in which you're able to drive change across an organization. So having that technical expertise and a blend of knowledge in both the laws and the regulations, but also that kind of understanding of how the technology works and how it's evolving and how it's changing and how that impacts on the risk, and blending that with the soft skills to be able to actually navigate lots of challenge. Like, as you said a few moments ago, there are lots of challenges. Lots of people are kind of saying, why do we need to do this? This is blocking innovation. So you have to have the confidence and the interpersonal skills to be able to handle that. So that's what I would say. The soft skills and the technical expertise blended together is really key for doing AI governance in an industry setting like the one I'm in.
Yeah, you don't have to become an engineer, but you need to speak the language of engineers also to get the trust from engineers that otherwise will look at you as a sort of blocker of their projects. Oliver, it was very interesting, it was fascinating. Thank you for your time. I'm sure you gave lots of very useful insights for our audience, and see you next time.
Thanks, Giulio. Really was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.